I just thought of it. I should have told you much earlier. But Sandra Bullock was not in Pretty Woman.
Who was that?
Julia Roberts.
Whatever.
So I don't really think the Whisper Monsters would have wanted her autographed copy of the DVD.
I'll be honest. How would they know? It's not like they watch the movies. Maybe they just mistook her for someone else.
That must be it. They're just chasing around the wrong person. That was the whole movie.
It's even better that way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Book Retorts. I'm Danielle.
I'm Sam.
And this is the podcast where one of us explains a weird piece of media.
Wait, Danielle. This isn't Book Retorts.
Oh my gosh, it's Spook Retorts!
Yes, Spook Retorts.
Bad Danielle, no biscuit. No Halloween candy. No candy corn this year.
Oh, that's actually a blessing in disguise.
I like candy corn,
I know
Sam.
you do, and I will never understand that.
Anyway, this is Spook Retorts. Spook Retorts. The podcast where one of us explains a weird piece of Halloween-themed media to the other that they have no experience or knowledge of.
I'm so inexperienced, like a newly turned vampire.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Good
thank
job.
you. I thought about it long and hard.
10 points to you.
Excellent.
Okay, so Sam.
Yes.
You may recall, in recent weeks, we introduced you to Sandra Bullock.
Oh, are we doing more Sandy today?
We are!
Oh, I'm excited. My apparent dearth of Sandra Bullock knowledge is about to be corrected.
It is. I mean, I don't know if The Net was the proper introduction to Sandra Bullock, but...
It wasn't my introduction. I know who she is, Danielle. I've seen her movies.
Just giving you a hard time. So this week, Sam, we are doing what I promised we would during The Net.
Oh, I
Bird Box.
forgot about that, Danielle. I forgot we're doing Bird Box. Completely forgot.
I know you did, because you asked last week, you're like, what are we doing? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you for many reasons. That's the entire shtick. But also, you should know.
I should have known. That's on me. Well, lucky for you.
So 2018 movie, Bird Box, Netflix, if you want to watch it.
You sound unsure about that recommendation, Danielle.
I mean, it's a decent enough movie. It has some stuff, as you'll see as we get into it.
Okay.
So I am going to give just a little bit of a trigger warning about suicide. I am not going to go in depth on all this, but it does play an important role in this plotline. So just a heads up to our listeners.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I am going to send you the summary here. We'll get this party started. The spooky party started.
Oh, boy. First, you put a bird in a box. Step 2. You cut a hole in that. Oh, wait, no.
You might want to cut a hole. Step 1, cut a hole in a box.
Step 2, put a bird in that box. There we go.
That is the plot of Bird Box.
Oh, I thought so. All right, here we go. 5 years after an ominous, unseen presence drives most of society to suicide, a survivor and her 2 children make a desperate bid to reach safety. Now, Danielle, this sounds almost exactly like The Happening.
I have not seen The Happening, so I can't tell you that.
The Happening is where plants emit magic pollen that causes people to commit suicide, and Mark Wahlberg has to run away.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this movie is a combination of several different movies, Sam.
Okay, great. Well, if it's as good as The Happening, I'm very excited.
Yes, and I will say that Sandra Bullock carries the heck out of this movie.
Oh, well, she's amazing. We've already established that.
Yeah, that's like literally puts this movie together and pulls it along.
All right, well, I can't wait to hear about Bird Box.
Bird Box.
Bird Box.
Interesting title for this movie. So it opens with mountain scenery with a beautiful river coursing through it.
I'm already relaxed.
Yes, but you won't be shortly because there's a voiceover that's clearly kind of on like a walkie-talkie radio system. And it's a man saying, we have a place, a compound, we have a community. It's safe here. How many are there? Are any of them children? Because the fastest way to get here is by the river, and I don't think you could make it with kids.
Bummer for the kids.
Yeah. And so then it switches. Cutscene to a woman's face. It's Sandra!
Yay! Movie over. Best movie ever.
She's looking at the camera and she's talking to someone in an extremely stern voice. And she is telling them that they're going on a trip. and it's going to feel like a very long time, and they have to be very careful. They have to be very quiet. They have to do every single thing she says, or they will not make it. They are not allowed to take off their blindfolds no matter what. If they hear anything, they have to tell her. If they take off their blindfolds, they will die, and there is no talking on the river.
And you'll never get to Disneyland.
Yes, I don't think who she's talking to has ever been to Disneyland.
Kid, we're going to Disneyland, but you have to do exactly what I say. You will never get there. You can't take off your blindfold or you will die, and no Disneyland for you.
I'm pretty sure that's how I ended up at Disney World.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So the camera pans out. She is, of course, talking to children, as you might have thought.
Yeah, no, I surmised that children would be involved when they were mentioned first thing in the opening narration voiceover thing.
So there's 2 children, and she calls them boy and girl.
Wow, how compassionate.
Well, we'll get there, Sam. And they're little. I'm going to say about 5-ish, 6. And she, timeline-wise, probably about 5-ish. And they're played by Julianne Edwards and Vivian Lyra Blair.
Okay, just a quick aside, Danielle. One thing, don't know who children actors are, so thank you for their names, but that doesn't help me. But more importantly, she is doing this all wrong. Instead of trying to scare the children, she'd done a Life is Beautiful scenario where she made it into this game the children wanted to play.
Okay, we're going to get into her character, and she is definitely not a Life is Beautiful, let's play game mother figure to these children.
Uh-oh, okay.
We're going to get into her history here.
I'm just saying, her tactics are wrong for getting compliance from children.
Yes, maybe, but I mean, it works sort of.
All right, sorry to interrupt so much. Let's get back into it.
So they nod agreement, they're packing, and there is a shot of a bird in a cage, and Sandy, all of my notes say Sandy with an exclamation point up to this point, takes the bird in the cage and puts it into a box that has holes in it. She followed the proper procedure, Sam.
The bird box.
The bird box. So Sandy, who then I finally looked up her name because we're several minutes into this film and I'm like, I'm never going to know the name of this character.
That's one of those, huh?
And her name is Malorie.
Malorie. Okay. Well, either one works for me, Danielle.
Well, I have another character I'm going to call by his actual actor name. So let's get Sandra's into Malorie.
All right. Well, that's your call.
Malorie is seen walking very swiftly through this property with the kids, and they're all blindfolded. The camera actually switched to the blindfold vision, so you can kind of see some light shadows, vague light shadows, which is an interesting premise because it's for some reason she's not supposed to be able to see, right? But she can kind of see through the blindfold, so
not very good blindfold then, eh?
The property has these tripwire lines around the outskirts, which she uses to guide her.
Oh.
And I assume just maybe they could trigger something if something came on the property. I don't know. But she's using them as guidelines, and they guide her to a staircase that leads down to a shoreline that's along the riverfront.
Okay. Trying to get a boat. Who doesn't love boats?
Yeah, and there is a rowboat down there that's, kind of covered by all these leaves and stuff, and she pulls it out, and the kids and herself get in there, and they start paddling down the river.
So it's like a Huck Finn situation, eh?
Yeah, blindfolded.
I don't know. I didn't read that book for a long time. You could be blindfolded.
I'm pretty sure they're not blindfolded in Huck Finn, but I could be wrong.
All right. Well, I won't say anything more about that book because, oof.
The camera zooms out, does that creepy music from afar thing, and it looks like someone's kind of watching a little bit. So suspicious and mysterious.
This reminds me, again, I'm sorry to keep bringing it, this reminds you of the 13th Warrior, when you had all the evil things in the woods that didn't do anything.
Yes, except these things eventually do something.
Oh, okay,
So
well.
It's got one up on the 13th Warrior, which, low bar. If anything goes anywhere in this movie, then it's already ahead of the 13th Warrior.
Oh, burn on Michael Crichton.
So the time shifts were 5 years earlier, and Malorie is painting at a what is it called?
Gallery?
No, she's just in a house, but she's painting,
okay.
And a woman walks in and she's like an artist painting, not like wall painting,
right? Okay,
and a woman walks in and is watching before turning off the music that's blasting in the house, and this is Jessica, and it's her sister. She's played by Sarah Paulson.
Okay, Jessica and Malorie.
Yes. She tells her that the store was packed, that this thing, quote unquote, must be serious. Malorie has no idea what she's talking about, and Jessica's like, are you serious? Turn on the TV. What's wrong with you?
People are panic hoarding. Makes sense.
Yeah. The news says that the airport and transportation's shut down. People are escaping the city. Witnesses are reporting mass unexplained suicides that had started in Europe and have spread across it into Russia. Tens of thousands have died, And there's also this unexplained violent mobs and people burning buildings, like just all this insane stuff going on.
Uh-oh, that's not good.
Yes. As far as experts know, it's not pathological or viral, and they're asking the public to remain calm.
Yeah, that's going to work.
Yeah, and my notes are sure.
Oh, man. Now, I would love it if it was pathological, because there are parasites that, like, infect ants and make them climb up on the top of grass with giant, like, red bulbs on their head so that they will be eaten by birds to start their parasite life cycles again. So if this was like a creature doing that to humans, that'd be amazing.
Oh, man, that would have been such a better movie. We need to write that. I've never heard of that, and now I really want that to exist.
All right, get on it.
So Malorie kind of disregards it. She's like, well, that's weird, but it is Russia, so...
Ooh.
I know. And she walks away from the TV, which shows an image of an arrow going over to Alaska from Russia. And I assume that's for all of us United States citizens that don't understand how close Russia and Alaska are.
Or who played like a Risk as a child. And because Alaska's on the left side of the board and Russia, Kamchatka, is on the right side of the board. And you can go from one to the other, but you have to wrap around the entire board and people always forget. So yeah.
Exactly. So it's for all of us who did not remember how Risk worked.
Yeah, well, Risk, more educational than you think.
It is, actually. I'm going to hold to that for the rest of my life.
Okay.
So her sister invites her to go check out a horse. I guess she does something with horses.
Hey, you want to go check out this horse?
Yes.
And Mallory is like, actually, I have an appointment with my OB, my obstetrician. And the sister gets very excited. And it's clear that Mallory is doing something with the baby.
Doing something with the baby.
You don't know quite yet what's going on.
Like trying to have one or carrying one or surrogating one?
It's clear that we could check on the baby, but you don't know if that means that she's pregnant, if there's somehow a person that's pregnant, like a surrogate. Like we don't know what's going on quite yet. So she seems to also have some reservations about attachment. This clearly comes from her family situation. They don't get super into it. And she also recently broke up with some dude named Ryan, who doesn't play any role whatsoever.
Ryan doesn't play any role?
Nope.
Well, then I'm glad they brought him up.
I think it's just establishing that she has some like severe attachment issues. She's definitely not super into this baby thing, but it feels obligated to go to the OB.
That's going to turn out well for that poor child.
Yeah. So cutscene, they're walking through a hospital, and surprise, Mallory is super pregnant, which you did not get from the camera angles earlier. I actually rewound it, and I remember thinking this is the very first time I watched it back in 2018. I was like, oh yeah, I was confused. I didn't realize she was pregnant.
That is amazing. Surprise, baby bump.
It's really big too. She's like, 8 months along or something.
Wow.
And the doctor is played by Parminder Nagra, who's Bend It Like Beckham.
Ooh, I love that movie.
Yep, so she's the actress in that. And she has a whole conversation with her about, birthing, and also because she can tell that she's very on the fence about this kid.
It's a little late for that.
I know. Well, she kind of has that conversation. She's a pretty straightforward doctor. She also gives her an adoption handout. Like, you don't have to keep the child, but here's an adoption handout. It's another option. And her sister goes to pull the car around to pick her up. So as Mallory's leaving the hospital, a woman that she saw earlier chatting on the phone is suddenly rushes to this window and starts beating her head against the glass. And Mallory books it. She starts running out of the hospital.
Yeah, no kidding.
To her sister's car who's waiting out front. And she's like, it's happening here now. Whatever is going on in Russia, we need to go. And just as she's saying this, an ambulance drives right in front of their car and slams into another car. And they peel out of the hospital and start driving down the road.
Creepy.
And her sister, because she didn't see really any of this other than the ambulance, she's like, what the heck's going on? She's going well, let's go to my house in this other city over there. Well, until everything kind of passes, we'll hunker down there. And as they're driving, you can it starts getting more and more chaotic. You can see the cars driving erratically around them. There's some kind of explosion in the background and people are fighting in the streets. It's just instant chaos.
That seems about right. I mean, having lived through living through a global pandemic, people do not react well.
Especially when it's slightly supernatural in tone.
Yeah.
So the cell phone rings from the purse in the back, and Mallory reaches for it because Jessica's driving. And as she's trying to get it out of the purse, Jessica suddenly goes wide-eyed and she's like, what am I seeing? What am I seeing? And Mallory kind of is looking around the car. She looks up, she doesn't see anything, and Jessica's eyes remain like wide open. She begins to tremble. She looks like super sad, and then she just starts driving erratically down the road. And Malorie grabs the steering wheel. She's trying to stop it, and the car slams into another car and flips into the air, landing upside down.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. This movie does this like 0 to 60 thing several times where you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, that is abrupt.
Yeah, there's a great scene later you're gonna love that's just like wild.
Oh, I'm excited.
So people are running down the street and they're crawling out. They both survive. They're crawling out of the car, and Jessica clearly is under whatever compulsion she's under. She walks away from her. She looks back at her once and then just steps in front of a truck. She's gone.
No!
I know. It's very sad.
I knew Jessica so well as a character.
And Malorie like tries to reach her. It's too late. Chaos is just filling the streets. People are running and screaming, and she kind of like gets hit by another person and falls down on the street. And alongside the road, there's this house, and there's a man and a woman standing on the porch. And the man, played by John Malkovich.
Oh, hey-oh!
Hey! That's part of every movie. He's telling the woman that's with him to get inside. And she's like, I can't. The lady's pregnant. I've got to go grab her. And so she's kind of like running out, trying to get her off of the street. And she's like, come into the house. Come into the house. And she suddenly just stops. And she looks off to the side. And she starts calling for her mother. She's like, Mom, is that you? And her mom's not there.
Obviously.
There's nobody in front of her. And she's like, oh, don't go, Mom, don't go. And then randomly just like turns away and walks to this burning car and gets inside. And Malkovich is watching. He went into the house. He's like watching from the window. He can't like do anything.
Yeah,
People are screaming, running. And this other man approaches Malorie and just kind of scoops her up and is like, keep your eyes down. And they're like rushing to the same house. So like she's trying to get her into the house.
These people immediately realize what the trigger for this thing was. Like, keep your eyes down. Like, I would not figure that out.
Well, this guy, we'll get into it in just a minute, but he does have a little bit of background as to why he might know this.
Okay.
But no, like most people don't seem to realize what's going on. At least not at this point. But they do kind of figure it out sort of quickly. Though I guess if you saw everybody just staring at things, you would think that it's somehow visually centered.
Or, maybe it just like affects their brain in a way where they get all spacey.
Absolutely. I mean, they could just be hallucinating things.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is, not a settled thing.
I don't disagree with that. But this particular guy, this movie doesn't do a terrible job of using things that it puts into play. It does kind of explain a lot of things.
Well, that's rare for us.
The things it doesn't explain are like really large things.
Oh, okay.
Like,
back on track.
where you're just kind of like, but how does any of that work?
I was worried for a moment there that we were outside of our comfort zone with a movie that made good use of all its laid groundwork. And then you're like, oh, but it doesn't explain anything. Like, okay, good. Back in Spook Retorts territory.
Some of the choice, it does actually a plot point goes to plot point like it should in a normal movie. The movies we don't often do. But some of the choices this movie makes are wild. So that's the fun part. So Malkovich is like, don't open the door. Like he's, doesn't want to, but there's another guy with him that's inside, and it's clearly this guy's house. And so he's like, it's my house. I'm going to open the door. And so he runs over and gets the door open and lets them inside. And Malkovich stares at Malorie. He's in shock, obviously. He's like, because his wife's gone. Like that's
that would be rough for anyone.
Yeah. He's like, she went out there to help you and now she's gone. And Malorie just kind of looks shell shocked and, she's clutching her stomach. She just fell. So she's worried about that. And it's a whole mess. So apparently there's a whole group of people inside of this house.
Just like, oh, this is the one house everyone decided to congregate in?
Yeah, I'm sure they're probably like grabbing people or neighbors or whatever the case may be. You do not get a whole lot about the people in this house.
Oh, okay, well that's good.
I'm actually gonna kind of ignore some of the characters because they're so irrelevant to this.
I appreciate that, Danielle. Thank you for sparing me.
You're welcome. So Malkovich's name is Douglas. He's a cranky old man.
Yeah,
he tells them they're all gonna die soon.
But who's his character, Danielle?
Who's his character?
That's just Malkovich. Who's his character?
Oh, yeah. No, totally. It's completely John Malkovich being John Malkovich, as with every movie John Malkovich has ever been in.
I love John Malkovich.
I mean, I love that he's always John Malkovich.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I can't unsee John Malkovich when he's acting. He's like, this is classic bio-warfare. We're all gonna die. Like, he's that guy.
Oh, okay. I love him.
Yeah. And then the map on the TV shows the issue spreading with orange and red dots, just in case you were unclear.
I was unclear, Danielle. Thank you for clarifying.
You're You're welcome. So just in case you didn't realize, the entire street was covered instantaneously with people running around and destroying things.
Yeah, no, that was super unclear that there was a disaster happening.
So they're obviously trying to figure out what's going on. And the guy who rescued Malorie off the street says to the group, he's like, well, my crew saw one. One of the guys, like, he had the same, like, the big-eyed expression, and then he suddenly laid down in front of a bulldozer, and another tipped a truck into a ditch. And I think there's a correlation between seeing whatever it is, and then it makes you crazy or want to hurt yourself. Like, so he thought maybe there was a visual element. That's why he told him to keep her eyes down.
Fair enough.
So that was just his best guess.
Yeah, that makes sense, because he saw people do it.
So they start to close all the windows and, block them with, like, newspaper and stuff. And Mallory's kind of mostly ignoring everybody. They're all having a little group chat in the living room or wherever they are. And she's trying to make a phone call, but her cell just keeps going to busy. I'm not sure who she's trying to call.
Right. Did you call her sister? Because that's not going to work.
Yeah, I don't know if it's family or what. It never really comes back around. And then the signal suddenly goes out on the TV. So they don't know what's going on anymore.
No, of course not.
So one of the people in the group, his name's Charlie. He's apparently, I don't know, kind of into spirituality or something.
I would hate to be stuck in the apocalypse with Charlie.
No, he's actually great. So you think when he starts to talk, you're like, oh man, not that character. It's like, it's a disaster character or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where my mind went.
Yeah, but it's one of my favorite characters.
Okay, well, prove me wrong, Charlie.
So he's played by Lil Rel Howery, and he's basically like, this is endgame. Humanity's been judged, and we've been found wanting. But like I said, it's less creepy than it sounds at the beginning.
Wait a minute. So now I think we would have been judged a long time ago. Like, there are many points in history I think we could have been judged harsher than now.
Oh, sure. But he's basically saying, like, in most religions, most mythology, they're like demons or spirit creatures. And the people who survive always describe the encounter with that entity, that it always takes on the form of like their worst fears or deepest sadness or greatest loss. And he's like, that's where we are right now. This is what's happening. And the group's like, okay, did you like study this? Where did you learn that? Because you work at a supermarket. Like,
well, a man could be into spirituality while still working at a supermarket,
sure.
Guys. Don't be so judging, classist.
That's what Charlie says. He's like, well, it's the internet. It's where you get all your information, guys.
Oh, Charlie, no.
He's writing a novel.
Oh, Charlie, no.
I love Charlie. He's definitely the best character.
Okay.
And so Tom, that's the guy who saved her. He's played by Trevante Rhodes, and he comes into the living room and kind of touches base with her because she's now like separated herself from the group. She is not having this discussion. And Malorie kind of breaks down about Jessica and like everything that's happened, and he comforts her a bit. And then Malkovich Douglas comes in and says that his wife wasn't talking to her mother when she, called her name. She's been dead for 10 years. And
yeah, we figured that.
Thanks, Malkovich. Oh, it was very unclear.
That she wasn't talking to someone who wasn't there. Real insightful there, Malky.
I'm sure that's just so that we have an idea of maybe what's going on.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're obviously watching as external observers, so.
So this is where the movie does start switching between the scenes. So you get 5 years earlier, 5 years later kind of thing.
Right.
And so it jumps ahead 5 years later, and they've been on the river for 6 hours at this point.
Man, I'd be seasick by that point.
I doubt it on the river. But you have to imagine that there's Valerie, the two kids, they're all blindfolded in a rowboat, and this river is relatively quick, and she's just rowing along, hoping for the best.
Blindfolded in a rowboat sounds like, I don't know, either a children's song or a really obscure sex position.
I just want you to properly be able to visualize these
No, it's
scenes.
great. That phrase, it will be indelibly burned into my brain, Danielle.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
Great. Can't thank you enough.
You're welcome. And so this is when we find out there are apparently 3 birds in the box. Ooh.
3 birds in the box, but only 2 in the bush.
Oh, and she is under a blanket. Sans blindfold, like she's pulled it off while the kids are asleep, and she's trying to get a hold of somebody via the walkie-talkie radio, but it's static.
Yeah.
And the birds start to chirp, just kind of like, go a little nutso.
I got a question. Might be irrelevant, but how's the battery still working in that walkie-talkie? Is there still electricity around?
It's battery.
I know, but like 5 years.
Well, I'm sure they got more batteries, Sam.
Okay. I don't know.
Batteries didn't disappear in 5 years.
I just don't know, like, if it... I guess I'm thinking of it's like a rechargeable one, or if it's like just double A's.
I think it's a battery-operated walkie-talkie, and she's gotten more batteries in the interim, which we'll kind of see as the plot goes on, that they, collect stuff from places.
Okay, fine. All right. I was thinking about modern technology where, like, a cell phone, its battery does not last that long, and you just order to replace it.
No, I think it's just regular old walkie-talkie batteries.
And that's why replaceable batteries are better, people.
Yeah, you actually see them get the walkie-talkies, and given where they get the walkie-talkies from, I'm going to assume they're battery-operated.
Okay, that's fair. All right, sorry.
It's fine. Good question.
No, it wasn't.
As the birds start to, like, chirp, she hears whispers outside the blanket calling her name.
Sandy!
No.
Sandy! We love you in Miss Congeniality!
Can we get your autograph?
Ah, your role in Pretty Women was a breakout success!
Yes, that's what she's hearing, and that's why it's freaking her out. Cutscene, 5 years earlier.
Oh, no!
So the group inside the house is listening to a radio announcement about making sure they don't go outside, don't look at the things. Clearly some news has made it out. The things, the creatures, they say Sam, oh man, Sam, you have to accept that these creatures just exist.
I accept they exist, but like, I would not accept that LeBron would be like, and remember, Bill, don't look at the things. The things we're talking.
Nope, Sam, that is all the information you have about the creatures.
That is such a terrible emergency announcement.
I don't think, it kind of sounds sort of like almost indie.
Like it's just like
effect,
a
it's
pirate
just some
radio?
guy.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Like it's definitely not official.
Okay.
And they're like, don't look at the creatures. But some news has made it out. Obviously, they've just figured out that it's some visual thing, and some time has passed, though you don't know how much time has passed.
Okay.
But they're running out of food in this house, understandably. There's a bunch of them.
I run out of food in like a week in my house.
Well, it's a pretty nice house. There was a couple that lived there.
I don't stockpile like tons of food in my house. I have like a few cans of tuna, maybe.
Oh, sure. I mean, I probably could go a couple of weeks in my house, but I don't think I'd last super long, especially with like 7 or 8 people.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not planning to have guests over, especially.
Well, don't open the door then, Sam.
No problem.
It's a disaster. Don't bird box it.
Look,
okay?
If they're late, that's their problem.
So they're talking about the food situation, and suddenly there's a knock on the door. And there is a woman outside named Olympia. And there are definitely some mixed feelings in the house about whether or not they should open the door.
Yeah, that's a question you gotta wrestle with.
Exactly. So Malkovich Douglas is anti-door. I'm going to call him MD because I can't. MD is anti-door. He's like, do not open the door. We were all going to die. Like, just stay in this house. And he seems like he's going for the gun that he actually had earlier, at a shotgun from his own house. He lives nearby. And he goes to get it, and Malorie picks up the rifle and holds it kind of at him, but also, past him to the door, and he stops in his tracks. And Tom goes to open the door. So they all close their eyes. They pass 2 blankets to the person outside to kind of cover up the area surrounding the door, and they let the person in.
Now, Danielle, I know you can't answer this question yet, but I am sincerely hoping there is an explanation for what or why these creatures exist. And if there isn't, if it's one of those like, we just don't know, it's a mystery things, I will be very upset.
I'm not going to tell you, Sam.
I know you're not going to tell me. I'm just putting that out there at the beginning here. So if we get to that point, I can make a reference that I already laid this out.
Okay. Duly noted, everybody. All of our listeners, take note that if there's no explanation for these... if there's no explanation for these monsters, Sam is going to be very upset.
If there's no, we just have no idea, and I'll be like, well, movie, you failed at the one thing you were supposed to do, which is be interesting.
It's going to be great.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Olympia is played by Danielle McDonald, and Tom asks Malorie to put the gun down. He's like, okay, she's clearly a normal person. Let's put the gun down. And MD is like, yeah, before you kill someone, because you have no idea how it works. And Malorie, bless her little heart, empties out all the shells to the floor, showing she clearly knows exactly how the gun works.
Should have said to make it useless at least. Great job.
Yeah, but stops Cranky Pants in his tracks. So that's pretty funny. The look on Malkovich's face is pretty hysterical.
Oh, I do like Malkovich.
Olympia's pregnant, so...
Another one? Oh,
yeah,
is this the boy or the girl?
You'll find out.
Okay.
So she tells them that her husband is in the Air Force. He is, out of the area, and she's running out of food. She lives about a block away, and she's been knocking on all the doors. And these were the first people that answered the door. And now they're like really worried about food because they have another person and not just a person, a pregnant person.
That doesn't help.
So the guy who owns the house, his name's Greg. He's played by B.D. Wong, and he suddenly remembers, just in this moment, that he has video feed.
Video feed of what?
His house. Like, his house is cameraed. He
has a bunch of security cameras inside his house?
No, outside the house, like showing the entire property.
All right.
And it's a quote-unquote digitized image that shows heat signatures, and he thinks that maybe they can see the creatures that way.
Yeah, you blew past that heat signature camera nonsense really quickly.
Well, that's kind of like they sort of explain in the movie, but basically like, this is how it works, and we can see heat signatures.
So he has a bunch of IR cameras around the property. Is he a paranoid prepper guy?
Okay. So the weird thing is these cameras just show like, I think they're black and white images of just like of the yard and all that stuff, but somehow supposedly also something to do with heat signatures, which does not come into play, Sam. And
Okay. I thought maybe that would help out, like, find the creatures or something, but no, I guess that's irrelevant.
No, we'll get there, but it's not like quite what you think. This movie never goes exactly where you think it's going. But yeah, he has like really extensive camera system in his backyard.
And it's still working, and he just remembered this?
Yeah, they're like, well, how are we going to get out of here to go to a store or get more food or, go to the neighbor's house to get food? And he's like, oh, I have some cameras, maybe that'll work. And you're like,
Greg,
how long have you been there, dude?
Greg! Come on, Greg!
I was blown away.
His name's Greg, right?
Yeah, his name's Greg.
Okay, good. I can remember which one was Greg.
If it makes you feel better, I actually got about 4 pages into my notes when I realized at some point I changed Malorie's names to Melanie. And I was like, oh no!
That does make me feel better. Thank you, Danielle.
I had to go back and replace it all with Malorie.
You shouldn't have. It'd be hilarious.
Oh, good times. So, anyway, he points out that he has these cameras. Maybe they can keep track of it that way and then can figure out how to get out of the house. And everybody's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, we don't even know how these creatures work. What if you see it on a camera and you also go insane? Like, we don't, like, he's like, well, it's not like a direct image. You're not actually looking at the thing.
This
you're
isn't
looking
like
at the camera.
Medusa rules, kid. You don't know.
And so he volunteers his tribute, basically. He's like, I'll do it. I'll watch. Like, strap me down to this chair. You keep me safe in this room, and I will watch the cameras and see what happens. Like, I think it's worth it to see.
So, quick question. Whenever anyone's affected by these things, they're only a danger to themselves, right? They don't, like, go around killing other people.
Okay, so right now, this movie plays very loosey-goosey with this idea.
Okay.
So, theoretically, yes, they're only a danger to themselves. But there's definitely a lot of, like, people just going insane when this happens, and like eventually they seem to end up dead, but
sometimes
there's also a lot of violence
bonkers
prior to that. And so I think the threat is like, you may not just hurt yourself, you might hurt others in the process. So they don't quite know what's going on, but right now it seems like they pretty quickly hurt themselves and not necessarily others, but there's a lot of violence in that act.
Right, of course. Okay.
So Greg has volunteered to watch the cameras. Everybody's like kind of against it. There was a big fight, but Greg's like, I'm doing it.
Yep.
So they tie him to a chair and they leave him in the room to watch his video feeds. And then they like shut the door and wander off because apparently there's like no guards at the door. Nobody watches him, which they could because like they're not watching the video.
You know, also like his gun in there, trained on him just in case.
Yeah, like it's wild. They just literally all just go back downstairs.
Oh, they want to die.
It's insane. So as Greg, it's kind of like it happens for several minutes. He's watching these screens. Everything else is happening in the house. And then some mysterious shadows and leaves seem to like cross the video screen in front of Greg. You don't see anything specific, just kind of like almost like wind. And
this is the happening.
Yeah, basically. And then Greg's eyes get very large and bummer. Apparently the monsters can work via video screen.
Yeah, shows what you know, Greg. Loser.
Because Greg doesn't do too well, and they hear some pounding, and they all run upstairs, because none of them were upstairs to begin with. And Greg, as they throw open the door, and Greg definitely, like, falls over, because he's trapped in this chair, hits his head, and he dies.
That was fast.
This movie, man.
I mean, like, I don't know how quickly I could kill myself if I was strapped to a chair, but I don't think I could do it just by falling over and hitting my head once.
Well, this movie posits that that's exactly what happens.
I guess well done, eyes. Greg.
They're all covering their eyes because of the screen and everything. Because they're kind of like all falling off the table and stuff. And Malorie rushes forwards and she's smashing the screens. And they show a lot of dead Greg.
Aw, Greg, we hardly knew ye.
I know. So that night, Olympia comes into Malorie's room and she's like, can we sleep in the same room given our condition? We're both pregnant. And they kind of have a little moment. Olympia's asking her what she plans to name the children. And Malorie's like, well, I haven't chosen a name. And they kind of go back and forth on that. And then Malorie asks about her husband and her family. And then it's super awkward because, as we know, she does not have a husband and her family just died.
Yeah, of course.
Bummer.
So if she was like 8 months pregnant when this all started, it has to be only been like a few weeks, right? Yeah,
I'm going to say it's like maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
The events. Like, I don't think it's been super long because they're almost out of food. And like you said, who lasts 7-8 people in a house for that long without food? Right,
of course. Okay, just kind of get the timeline straight.
Yeah, there is no timeline in this movie. It's all supposition, Sam.
Okay, well, trying to suppose the timeline into place.
And she's very pregnant, so I'm assuming that that not more than a month maybe passes during this time. So back on the river, they're 14 hours into their trip, and Malorie hears a guy shouting to her from somewhere. It's very foggy.
Uh-oh.
I know. He's like, you can take your blindfold off. I've got some food. And Malorie looks at the children. She's like, well, she doesn't look at them. She's blindfolded. She turns to the children and she's like, under no circumstances will you be taking your blindfolds off. Like,
this sounds like it's totally not a trap.
And she kind of rows off to the side of the river and she takes out her handgun and she's just kind of trying to point it at the voice that's talking. Obviously, she can't see him. And he seems to be maybe like rowing out of the fog. He's clearly getting closer. And he's like, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just here to pull you to shore. And she's like firing wildly.
Why is she even like stopping to like just row away?
I know. I don't know, Sam. And he suddenly makes it to the boat, like just appears, and he's apparently like maybe walking in the water. I don't think he has a boat.
Just walking on the water. All right.
It was bizarre. Like maybe she's closer to the shore than it appears because he's just suddenly there. And he tries to he pulls on her. He's like trying to get her blindfold off and grappling with her, and the kids are hiding as well as one can in a rowboat, and he's yelling at her. He's like, I've seen one, I know the truth, take your blindfold off, it's beautiful. And the birds are going insane and chirping.
Yeah, of course.
And she ends up pulling this machete out of her bag and she starts attacking him with it, and he's yelling something about it shall cleanse the world, everyone must look. And then she stabs him, and he kind of he disappears into the murky depths of the river. He just kind of fades, he dies into it.
Anytime someone's like, it'll cleanse the world, you immediately know that's a bad sign.
Oh yeah, this movie just, I don't know. I really can't explain.
This is like Red Flag, the movie.
It's wild. It has many different ideas that I don't think it really wants to settle down on.
Yeah, of course.
So he has faded into the water. And we go back to previously on Bird Box. Charlie.
I really wish they put that previously on Bird Box.
It kind of is, though. It's 5 years later. Charlie suggests that they go to the store where he worked at for food.
Okay.
He said, I locked it all up before I left.
That would have stopped people, sure.
That's what I was thinking. As soon as he said that, I was like, they're going to break in, dude. Come on.
Grocery stores notoriously have glass doors.
I know. Wild. And so he's like, I locked it all up before I left. So it's probably still safe. It's not a huge store. Let's go. So they decide to go on this run. And so it's Tom and Malorie, some random person, and Charlie and MD.
Okay. So they're just running out, little eyes wide.
No. So they get into the garage, they paint the car windows with paint and tape everything up with some paper. And they end up using their GPS system plus their fancy car system, the one that alerts you when you're like getting too close to something.
Okay, collision avoidance system, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So they use those two systems in their car to get out of the garage and down the streets to the store.
I'm calling shenanigans on this because those streets would be littered with like broken down cars. There'd be no way through if you could see.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like a suburban street, and there's definitely a ton of stuff on the streets because they do a couple of shots outside the car. They're like run over a couple dead bodies. Like they're definitely hitting stuff, but they're like trying their best to avoid large objects, and obviously they can't see, so this is just like nonsense.
Yeah, no, absolute nonsense.
So the sensors, as they're driving, they're like almost there. The sensors are freaking out though. Like it's showing that they have stuff everywhere around them. And suddenly they stop the car because they're like, oh my gosh, is there another car on the road? Like what's going on? And they suddenly start seeing shadows like come over the car through the windows, and the car starts to like shake and rock.
Spooky.
It is. And everybody's like freaking out. Charlie's trying to get out of the car. They're like, stay in the car.
Why is Charlie trying to get out of the car? Stay in the car, Charlie.
He didn't want to go. He got kind of like forced into going as one of the group.
Well, then he should have suggested going to his store. All right.
I know. Well, he said that's all my contribution. I don't want to go. I'm just telling you should go there.
Oh, okay. Well, Charlie, you
but
coward.
They forced him. So Tom decides just to gut it, and he like pile through whatever it is that's around them, because clearly this must be the creatures. And he almost hits the store. Like they follow the GPS. He almost hits the store, but they make it. They like park right in front of it, essentially squeal to a stop. And they've seemed to have outrun the creatures at this point. Like they're no longer around them.
All right, Danielle, this is the point in every like post-apocalyptic movie where I think to myself, I would probably have just given up by this point. This is way too much effort to just stay alive in a world that sucks.
I think it's interesting that they didn't just all go to the next house over, because originally they were like, let's go over to Malkovich's house because it's next door and then he has food.
I mean, that would have worked too, but like every apocalyptic movie, maybe it's just me being a lazy person, but I'm like, if the zombie apocalypse were like, I don't want to live in 24/7 fear and constantly be struggling and scraping. Like, that sounds like a miserable existence.
Yes, it does. But I would be the opposite of that. I would 100% try to survive as long as possible.
Why? What's the point?
I'm not saying there's a good point to that, Sam. And the movie kind of actually gets into this a little bit later. But like, that's just who I am.
Fair enough. It's very interesting where I'm like, this is why post-apocalyptic movies maybe don't impact me the same way as you. I'm just like, that just seems like too much work.
I don't disagree. I mean, I like consciously and intelligently, I realize that that's a terrible idea, but like, I think I would live for the hope that maybe this is going to resolve at some point. We might go back to semi-normal.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I know, crazy.
Anyway, there's just a little insight into my psychology.
And mine. There we go. So they make it to the store, and Charlie basically like talks them in, because he's most familiar with where everything is, and they're all blindfolded. And I guess, as you said, nobody's broken the glass doors to get inside. He just like unlocks the door and they all go in.
Wild.
And they get inside, they pull down all the blinds and stuff, and they go shopping.
Just go, wait, they take off their blindfolds. Once they pull down the blinds, just go shopping. Like, what if the creatures are inside the store?
The creatures in this movie do not seem to ever enter the premises of places.
So they are strictly outdoor creatures.
Yeah, somehow, maybe they're vampires and they need to be invited in.
Oh, you just solved this movie, Danielle.
It's quite possible, because there is not a single... They seem to be safe in the buildings. Like, they obviously worry about, like, opening doors and stuff, but they, like, open the garage door. They're not really worried about the monsters coming into the garage. Like, that's not ever a concern in this movie. Okay,
well, I'm glad those creatures have a respect for privacy and property.
Yeah, it's like a private property line or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they're just like, look, we would go in there and cause them all to kill themselves, but, that's not really our property. We're not really into trespassing. That just seems wrong.
Yeah, no, there's no explanation as to why they can't just come into the house and kill everybody.
Great. Wild.
So MD is super excited about the booze, because apparently whatever state this is in, you can sell hard alcohol in the grocery store.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Tom and Malorie have some bonding moments talking about their family, and she was apparently raised on a ranch, hence all the gun fun facts that she had earlier.
Gun fun, great.
Uh-huh. And as she's kind of wandering the store, picking up stuff, she sees 3 birds in a cage behind the register, and she's kind of entranced by them.
How did they survive that long?
That's kind of what she says. She's like, well, you guys are lucky. How'd you make it,
Do the creatures come in and feed the birds and leave?
Yes.
Great.
They're very nice creatures, Sam. They just want friends.
They want friends. That's, oh boy.
They're just trying to bring people over to their side. They're proselytizing. That's why everybody's like, have you seen them? They're beautiful.
Well, there's one person so far, Danielle. So we'll see.
So MD calls them over. He makes an announcement like, everybody over on aisle 7. And he's like drunkenly toasting them. Yeah. And he's like, why would we ever leave this store? Let's just stay here. And like, they're like, well, we have a whole bunch of other people like back at the house. And he's like, just leave them. Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, just go get the other people. Like, if you wanted to stay in the grocery store, then stay in the grocery store. But, like, why is it either or?
Yeah, honestly, the grocery store might be the safer place to be. Send, like, one person back in the car to get the others.
Yeah, it's weird.
And that way, if the car is destroyed, you still have some people survive.
That's true. I don't know what the thought process is, because they still have to drive back to the house anyway.
Right, which is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, it's crazy. But as they're kind of having this argument, a knocking interrupts. And it's somebody who seems to be like in the freezer area of the deli.
Some guy like, I don't know, I'll cryogenically freeze myself and get through this.
It could be like a back storeroom, but it definitely looks like a freezer door. And I'm thinking like, why would you open the door to somebody like who's knocking in the freezer?
Do they have any of the guns with them or what?
I think they might have the shotgun. I can't remember.
Oh, these people are the worst.
So apparently Charlie is like, oh, that's Fish Fingers. It's the guy who works in the, like, meat section of the store.
What?
And, yeah, that's the nickname.
I got that, but, like, he's been locked in the store all this time?
Yeah, apparently. Like, I mean, they were working, and supposedly he's locked in there. And so they're, like, having this argument, like, well, should we open the door and let him out? And he's like, well, yeah, I know the guy is, like, a little weird, but, like, let him in. And he's like, let me in. I got trapped in here. And he's kind of, like, slightly incoherent, but they already said that he's, like, already a little odd. So Charlie doesn't seem to think it's a strange conversation. And the birds start going nuts. And Malorie, like, kind of looks at them and then looks at the door. She's like, no, something's wrong. Like, don't open the door. There's a bad feeling about this. Don't do it. And they've kind of already ajarred the door. Like, they've opened it.
Oh, no.
I know. And Fish Fingers, like, throws his body weight. He's a big dude. He, like, throws his body weight on this door. And then they can't get the door shut. Like, 3 of them are, like, trying to lean against it. And he just keeps slamming his body weight against it. And Charlie, panicking, he's like, oh, God, like, what do we do? What do we do? And he runs full body at Fish Fingers and like body slams him back into the freezer, and the door slams shut behind the two of them.
Oh, they're both in now.
They're both in. They're like, yeah.
Well, Charlie, it was nice knowing you. Bye, Charlie.
Yeah. And you hear Fish Fingers tell him, he's like, look, it's beautiful. And then blood like seeps out from underneath the door.
Also, I thought the creatures couldn't get inside.
Well, apparently they can in the freezer, Sam.
These creatures, and they make up their damn minds.
I can't tell. Like, maybe this leads to an outside area, like a place where you bring in food through the door, like a garage
warehouse
type area.
or something like that. Yeah, okay.
I don't know, Sam. And it kind of goes quiet, and then you hear Fish Fingers knocking again on the door. He's like, let me back in. You need to come in. So he survived, but Charlie, my favorite character, sadly did not.
Aww.
So I guess they're not staying in the store, and they somehow drive back and get into the garage again. You don't see that part.
Well, yeah, because this would be the same thing again.
Right. So as they get out of the car, the group's like, where's Charlie?
Don't worry about it.
Malkovich like, you know what? It's just another novel I won't have to read.
Oh, I like him.
I know. Malorie's like, you're such a jerk. But with R-rated language. And he's like, he saved us.
Did he? Because you had a gun. You could have shot him, right? Fish
I don't know if they had the gun. I don't think they...
Well, so they go on this expedition and they don't bring their one weapon?
They might... Sam, I don't remember, okay? I don't
I'm just saying, these people are dumb. Either they didn't bring their weapon or they didn't use the weapon they brought. Either way,
it's stupid. I agree. Malkovich and Malorie kind of have a little bonding moment later, so all's forgiven. But then in the moment, they kind of get into it. So switch back. It's back to the river time. And they've been on the river for 24 hours.
Do they have food with them? Did she bring food?
Yeah. So in the original message, which we'll kind of get to later, because I don't think you hear it in the beginning with the person over the video or the radio, they say bring enough like food and stuff for at least 2 days. They highly recommend more because that's how long it takes to get down the river to the compound area.
All right.
So they have like a bag, some blankets, like some food. So just like not a ton of stuff, but enough to last, a week or so.
Good to know.
So the boat suddenly slams against this like semi truck that has fallen into the river, parked in the river. I don't know, somehow got into the river.
Like you do.
And boy falls out along with all the food and blankets. It like tips the boat. And
he's dead.
Of course he's not dead, Sam.
Oh,
not yet. So she's scrambling. She's trying to get him back. She manages to get boy back into the boat, but loses all the other stuff.
Well, you didn't need that food or blankets anyway. We just discussed it.
Well, conveniently, Sam, just as all of this, she's trying to warm him up, and she hears this kind of like clanking noise off to the side of the shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
And she pulls the boat over and, parks the boat up on the thing, pulls it up. And she's like, kids, stay in the boat. Do not leave. Keep your blindfolds on. Put the blanket over you. Don't move.
I thought she lost the blanket.
Or they use the coats.
Okay.
And she's like, stay in the boat. And she uses this like fishing reel thing that has a bunch of line attached to it. And she like attaches it to the boat. And then she walks towards the noise that she's hearing.
Right. So that's her anchor.
Yeah. And she encounters a building that has these like wooden wind chimes that are in the porch area.
That's never ominous.
Well, I know, but the way the movie does it, you can tell it's not like super sketchy, It's like clearly just an abandoned building. And she comes inside it to the room, and it's just this big open space, and it was clearly like some kind of hospital or something. It has all these like, or maybe even a giant...
That's not making this place any less creepy, Danielle.
Well, I know, but the way that it's filmed, like, yes, it is inherently creepy, but the way that it's filmed is like a little less creepy because it's clear that it's empty, and she's just like, oh, cool, I've got supplies kind of thing.
Okay.
And so I don't know if it's a hospital or if it's just a place that has a lot of like hospital style beds in it.
Is her blindfold still on? So how's she seen any of this?
Once she gets into the room and she kind of like scopes it out, she ends up taking her blindfold off.
That's right, because you can't go inside. We established that.
Well, you can still see the windows and stuff, but she makes sure all the blinds and everything is, and a lot of the places already have like paper and stuff up on the windows because this has been going on for a while.
Okay.
So she ties the reel to a bed, and because she can't put it all over the room with her. And like I said, it's an abandoned type hospital style room, and she's gathering supplies and new blankets and everything. So convenient timing to lose all that and then come across all of it again.
That was easy, yeah. Never mind the metal clanking she heard earlier.
Oh, it wasn't really metal. It was the wooden of the wind chimes.
Oh, okay.
So as she's collecting all this stuff, the reel line that she had tied to the bed starts pulling against the bed. And she's like, oh God, okay. So she pulls out her handgun that she has and she grabs all her stuff. She follows the line back outside in a rush. And as she gets out past the house or the building, the wind picks up and she hears her name getting called, and she's starts to panic, and she's just firing kind of wildly into the air.
Sandy! Sandy, sign my chest. Sandy.
That's what's happening. And the surprise of absolutely nobody, the kids do not listen.
Their blindfolds are off, right?
No, they're not. But she's very stern with them. I don't it would be a hard sell to take their blindfolds off. They're a little afraid of her. So the girl basically is like, something's wrong with Malorie, which obviously.
Yeah.
And the girl loops this rope around her body and starts to walk up the shoreline. So it's tied to the boat, and she's calling for her. She walks into the woods. Malorie, where are you? And the wind picks up around her, and it's kind of a cool effect. The kid's hair stands up on end, like when you rub a balloon against your head.
Yeah.
So it all stands up, and then suddenly she falls to the ground and is pulled across the ground. And then you see Malorie rush into the scene, and she picks her up from the ground and starts to run towards the boat, and she's yelling at the kid I told you to stay in the boat.
Well, true, but also she's 5.
Well, no, but yeah, she does not treat these kids like she's 5, because she has this whole conversation. She shoves them into the boat again, and she's like, what did I tell you? That if I am not here, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? And the girl is clearly by rote is I'm supposed to save myself. And she's like, you don't come after me, you save yourself. She's very serious.
How are they going to save themselves, Danielle?
They're 5, I know.
They would be
these are the oldest 5-year-olds, Sam.
They would never. No, I don't care. Even if they're 8, there's no saving yourself at that point.
Yeah, no, these kids, and I think she's just literally raised them from birth, because like, they were born into this. Like, she's literally raised them to be little, like...
A 5-year-old brain is still a 5-year-old brain.
No, I do not disagree. And she is putting expectations, and this movie does kind of get into that, but, like, these expectations on these kids that are not kid expectations. Like, they're never going to be able to follow, and they don't because they're 5. Like,
yeah.
But she's just, like, very much treating them like they're mini adults. And understandably, I mean, I can't really fault her for that given the situation. But at the same time, there is some kind of play into that later.
Sure.
So, 5 years ago.
Oh, again?
Oh, if you're tired of it now, Sam, we're never going to make it the next few minutes.
Oh, we're in trouble.
So Olympia during the night is talking to someone at the door. Like, Malorie's trying to get somebody on the walkie-talkie. It's all static, but she overhears Olympia talking. And she's clearly already given them a blanket and is trying to figure out if she should let them come in. And Malorie is like, whoa. She, like, runs forward with the shotgun.
This is something you discuss with the group.
Well, it's like the middle of the night. So you can tell that Olympia's like, am I supposed to let them in? What am I supposed to do? She's like looking around her, but she doesn't like, she panics instead of just going to get somebody. And to be fair, they're like, if you're outside, you're kind of on a timeline. Like the person outside might die at any minute.
Right, of course.
She's kind of panicking. And then Malorie runs forward with the shotgun just as Olympia opens the door and the man rushes in. And this is Gary.
Gary!
Hey! He's played by Tom Hollander.
Tom Hollander or Tom Holland?
Tom Hollander.
Oh, those are different people.
I think so. I can double check.
I know of Tom Holland, the guy who plays Spider-Man.
No, it's Tom Hollander, and it's you'd know him if you saw him.
Okay, I did not know there was a Hollander and a Tom Holland.
Yeah, Tom Hollander's in a bunch of stuff.
Wow.
He's like one of those famous guys where you look at him and you're like, oh, Tom Hollander. Like, yeah, totally know him from stuff.
Fair enough. Wow, look at me. Learning new things every day.
Anyway, played by Tom Hollander. He, like, has the gun trained on him. He's like, listen, like, I'm fine. I was in another house, but these psychos, quote unquote, broke into the house and forced them outside and pried their eyes open to look at the creatures. But as this was happening, one of his friends tackled them and he managed to escape. And so he's been knocking on doors, like, everywhere. And these were the first people to open their doors.
Always the first.
I know. And now kind of everybody else has sort of showed up at this point, and MD is like, what is wrong with you? Why do you keep opening doors to strangers?
Yeah, no kidding.
And he says the weird thing was that the people who broke in didn't need to wear blindfolds. And everybody's like, well, what are you talking about? Like, if you don't wear blindfold and you go out there, you die. Like, that's just how it works.
No, they went crazy. We got it.
And he's like, yeah, I don't know why these people were different, but they were just like very happy, ecstatic even. And they just like wanted us to see the creatures, but they clearly were not going to kill themselves. It's just, I don't know, but it was really weird. And MD steals the gun from Malorie. He like runs up there, grabs it, and points it at him. And he's like, get out of the house. There are no strangers in this house, and anybody who disagrees can get out of the house too. Like, we are not doing this again. And right as he's doing this, one of the people in the group, this little old lady, she like comes up behind him and hits a plate over his head and knocks him out.
Well, it shouldn't have been so aggressive there, MD.
Yeah, Gary gets to stay. So, them's the breaks. So they lock him in a room, MD, not Gary.
Oh, well, both would be ideal.
Yeah, they put him in the garage. Like, so there's this, they can see him. There's like a door between the main house and the garage, but he's like stuck in the garage by himself. So that night, Gary's in the house. Olympia comes in and apologizes to Malorie. And she's like, I'm sorry. Like, all I could think of was when you guys had let me in, like that feeling of the panic and knowing there were people in the house, but they weren't opening the door. And I just felt like I had to open the door, and I'm so useless. This is not the kind of situation that I would like, that I'm ever going to do well in. And I'm too soft for this. Not like you, like you're so hard and you're good at this and you're, fit for survival. And I don't think I'm going to make it out of this.
Aww.
I know. And so she makes Malorie promise that if something happens to her, that she'll take care of her baby. And Malorie very reluctantly agrees.
I don't know if Malorie's the right person to saddle with another baby.
Well, I know, but I don't think that Olympia necessarily knows this. But I also think she's thinking, okay, this lady's kicked butt. Like, she'll take care of my baby for me if she promises. She's not going to go back on her word.
Okay.
And so Malorie ends up gifting her this little Hello Kitty doll that she had gotten at the grocery store.
Why?
Because it's like a baby shower. She's like,
no,
I know.
Why did she get the Hello Kitty doll at the grocery store?
Because it was like a baby shower gift. She's like, I know this wasn't what you expected for your baby shower, but here's a little gift for your daughter.
You could have brought more food for her daughter, which would have been better.
They did get food. It was the grocery store. They got like a ton of food.
I'm just saying, don't spend your time grabbing useless knickknacks.
Well, they grabbed that too. It's just a nice gift. Sam, you have to appreciate the little things. Apparently, this is how you die in the apocalypse and how I survive.
I don't really care at that point.
And I'm the kind of person to buy a Hello Kitty doll steal a Hello Kitty doll for somebody who's pregnant because, that's nice. And then I find joy in the apocalypse and you are dead.
I'm okay with that, honestly. You're going to go enjoy your apocalypse, Danielle.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that you don't understand the significance of how nice it is that she got her a little gift, even though she's super anti-baby.
Maybe I just never understand, Danielle.
Anyway, she got it, and she's like, this is for you, but you can gift it to your child, when they're a little bit older. And it switches back to the river. And you see girl, she's holding the same little doll. So
of course, duh.
Suggested that it's her daughter.
It's not suggested. It's explicit.
At this point. So she tells the kids, she's like, okay, listen, we're coming up to the hardest part of the trip. It's the rapids. And one of you is going to have the hardest job. And that is that you have to look. Somebody has to take off their blindfold and look because I need someone to navigate. And I can't be the one who does it because then we'll all die.
Why?
Because if she looks and sees a creature, then the kids are going to die.
But if the kid sees it either way and directs her wrong, they're going to die anyway. This doesn't solve the problem.
Well, yeah, but you're going to know the kid saw something. I mean, they pretty instantaneously are like, it's beautiful, or whatever crazy nonsense they start to spout as soon as they see something.
Okay, but then they're still blind in the rapids, and it doesn't help. I don't think the creatures are going to be like, tell him to go right instead of left. That's you
not
don't
what the
know
creatures
that.
are doing.
Like the guy who's like, let me help you. I have food. They sometimes have different effects on people. Also, again, once the kid's compromised, whether or not you know it, you're blind to get in the rapid, so you're screwed that way either way.
I mean, there's no good solution to this, but the adult in the situation dying is probably not the best one. So I understand why supposedly it needs to be a kid.
All right, I'm just saying, I don't think it would make a difference.
No, but I think I've rock at a hard place, Sam.
Fine.
And so the boy volunteers, and Malorie's like, no, I'm going to pick. You don't get to pick. I get to pick one of you to do it.
Why?
I think it's because she has to choose between these two children, and she wants it to be her decision and not the kid's decision.
Okay. But maybe they volunteer. That's fine.
I know, but the fault's on her. I don't know, Sam. It's just it's a very prominent part of the rest of this movie is whether or not she's the kid who volunteers is going to be the one that does it.
All right.
And I think it kind of plays into it a little bit later. So anyway, back home, Olympia starts having labor pains while they're making breakfast the next morning. And the older woman rushes her to the bedroom. Everyone goes to get supplies. She's like, scissors, water, all the stuff that you get.
Scissors, water. Yes, the things you need when having a baby.
It's true, though. You do need scissors and water.
Oh, I need a stapler? 2 packs of Pop-Tarts. And that's just for me. I'm hungry. And, I don't know, maybe put on a movie or something.
That's basically what happens. And as Mallory goes to help her, her own water breaks as well. And
a sympathetic pregnancy.
It must be it. Not that they're both 8.5 months along.
I think I know a sympathetic pregnancy when I see one, Danielle.
I mean, yes, that's exactly your cup of tea. And so Tom, he's like, okay, nope, because she's trying to, work through it. I've got to get the water. And he's like, no, you're going into the room. Let's go. And so, meanwhile, they're upstairs having their babies. And Gary is downstairs. He puts on some classical music and starts spinning around in circles, as one does. And pulls out a sketchbook, which features dozens of super creepy black charcoal images. And I'm sure he's 100% sane, Sam.
Yeah, no, he's totally fine. I'm sure he's not a danger to himself and others.
Not at all. And so MD...
should have listened to Malkovich.
Well, yeah, MD. He's in the garage. He's looking through the window of the house and he sees Gary pick up the bird cage and put it in the refrigerator. And then he starts peeling the paper off the windows downstairs.
So this was okay. All right. Okay. So this was a long play by a diseased person, a person who's infected by whatever this is. Because... yes. I don't think we've established that they have the capacity once they are compromised to be that devious.
I am 100% with you, Sam. And the first time I saw this movie a couple of years ago, I was like, what nonsense is this?
Thank you. Nonsense.
I agree. They have not established anything that these monsters can do. And it reminds me a little bit of It's a Disaster where they have no idea what's going on outside. And so the effects of everything are just completely random.
Also, why aren't the birds freaking out?
Yeah, that is a great question because they actually check out a couple of times you look over at the birds and they're super chill. He's like, well, I guess he's okay because the birds are fine. And I don't know if it's just when they're like acting with malice that the birds can sense it, or clearly that's the only time.
We only understand evil when it is actively directed at us. Otherwise, we're just like oblivious. Like they sense intent, not like I know
it's bananas.
Okay, I want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No, and Gary clearly expects that the birds are going to go crazy because he goes and sticks them in the fridge, but they don't start squawking then.
No! All right, this whole movie is BS.
It's crazy. And so MD's watching him through the window. He's like, what are you doing, Gary?
Yeah, good question.
And he starts peeling off all the stuff on the windows. And upstairs, they're having like the fastest baby births known to mankind. Like these
10
babies
minutes
are just
speed
popping
birth
out. And they each have one little baby. And Tom goes downstairs with some blankets and stuff. And MD tries to get his attention as he passes the door. He's like, he took the birds in the freezer. Like, yeah. He's kind of ignoring him. And he kind of looks at him like, okay. And he's sort of suspicious, but he just is wandering around the house. Ugh. And he sees Gary's pictures that are like spread out on the table, the drawings. And then promptly, as he's like, what the heck are these? He gets knocked out by Gary.
Yeah, of course. Oh, gosh. None of this makes any sense.
This is the best part of the movie, Sam. I mean, it's terrible, but it's kind of funny.
Okay.
So Gary goes up to the window in the door and like square on, just like looks at MD in the eyes. And MD's like, you're like infected. Like there's something wrong with you, obviously.
You think?
But he's like, you can kind of see the eyes get kind of a weird, they just look slightly different. They look still human, but very like, I don't even know how to explain it. They just kind of have like multiple colors going on in them.
Okay.
And Gary holds up the garage door button and like pushes it, and the garage door slowly opens while MD's like standing in there. I know. And MD's like pulls his hands over his eyes and he's like screaming at him like, what are you doing? Like, let me in.
So what I would do here, and maybe again, this is my ignorance of how garages work, I would push the garage close button because then it would start going backwards, right? And then if you push it open, I just keep pushing the close button. We keep going back and forth, like trapped in the standoff. And then maybe I just unplug the garage door, right?
Yeah. See, you'd survive this scenario, and John Malkovich is just like standing there with his eyes closed, screaming at Gary.
Okay, well, you know what? Maybe I would survive the apocalypse, Danielle. We don't know.
So, meanwhile, Gary goes upstairs and he comes to visit. He wants to look at the babies, Sam.
I'm sure he's very innocent about all of it.
He is too. He like pokes his head and he's like, oh, hello, they're so beautiful.
What is with this capacity for deception? This is insane.
And he's a great, like, this actor is such a good person for this role because he's just like, seems very harmless, but he's like, has a super creepy vibe and it's perfect. Like, he's a really good person for this.
I mean, I'm sure he's amazing, but my point is, in the logic of the movie, this is nonsense.
No, it totally is. But it's such a good, like, he's not in much of the movie, but he's just such a good pick for this role. Cause it's just like, oh no, he's not right. Like, nothing's wrong. But
okay, all right,
like,
give it a pass.
You can see why people would think he's fine, but then you're like, oh no. So, he's like, he looks at each baby. He's like, can I see yours? Can I see yours? He's like, these are beautiful. And then he walks over to the window and like peels off the paper and he's like, look how beautiful it is out there too. And they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like,
no kidding.
So Malorie tries to grab the baby. She's like, give me your baby to Olympia, because Olympia like immediately looks at the window and her eyes get huge.
Why would she do that?
She's not that smart, Sam.
I figured that out already.
So, of course, our hero Malorie is like, got her eyes closed. So Olympia didn't look away in time.
All right, quick question, Danny. I'm sorry, but I got to understand. They're upstairs, right?
Yeah. In one of the bedrooms.
So these creatures can fly?
No. So the creatures are outside.
Yeah, but like, if I'm looking out a, second story window, unless I'm like near the window looking down, I could only see.
Oh, yeah. Sam, if you want explanations about the creatures in this movie, hold your breath, because you're going to die in like 10 minutes.
Hold your breath, you're going to die. Okay, that was, I don't know what that meant, but okay, Danielle, I can't wait to hear it.
These, like, the explanations for this is just, nothing makes sense.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, Danielle, I do not buy that she would immediately glance out an upper story window and be like, oh, I saw a creature that isn't able to fly, was like perched outside the window waiting for them.
I think it can fly, though, because whenever you see them, it's like very wind gusty, and you see the like the leaves moving and the trees moving.
So maybe they can fly. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Like, maybe they can, and they seem to like be called or something, because he just pulls the paper and immediately there's a monster there.
Okay, great.
You don't see them. You never see these creatures. The
movie, I figured they would never see them. That'd be too easy.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere, I think this was the movie where I read that they did create one of the monsters, like CGI version type thing, but it was like people laughed when they saw it, so they took it out.
That's so sad.
It was like creepy and weird and nobody liked it, so they took it out of the movie. We're just like, it'll be like, it'll be fine.
Aw. I mean, probably a better movie for it.
No, it does. It kind of makes it creepier, but then the minute you start to think about these creatures and the like lore behind them or why they exist or anything about them, you're like, none of this makes sense.
That's fair. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the big dramatic baby, the big dramatic baby's being born and then almost murdered scene.
Yes, that's actually what is happening here. So Malorie manages to grab the babies. Olympia does not look away in time. I might have mixed those names up earlier. I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
Olympia is the one that's eyes get super wide, and Malorie manages to like grab the baby from her. She's like, give me your baby, give me your baby. And Olympia kind of has just a shred of sense left and kind of like hands it. And immediately Olympia walks towards the window and falls out. And
the window's open now?
They pulled the window open.
Okay.
Or she jumps through. Something happens. It breaks. She's through.
Got it.
You don't really, I mean, you see it, but you don't see the actual part of her. You see the end result of her falling. You don't see
How long was Gary, that's his name, right? How long was Gary in the house? Like, was it weeks since they got him in?
No, I think it was like a day. There's no timeline, but he's like, it seems to come in the middle of the night, and then the next scene is a morning.
All right.
And
that's
they're
slightly
all like
more
breakfast.
believable than if he'd been living with them, deceiving them for weeks or whatever.
No, I think it was like less than 24 hours.
Okay. I still don't buy it, but no. Fine.
So then Gary, like the woman that was helping deliver the births, the older woman, he like walks over her. She's just cowering and she's got her eyes closed, and Gary walks over to her and forces her eyes open, and she immediately dies as well.
Is she looking at the window, or is she like in a corner somewhere?
She is, I mean, the window takes up like the whole wall side.
Okay.
She's kind of like just cowering. I don't know why she didn't just like leave the room or something, but I think she just panicked and like, she's like, don't
I'm just curious, like if
it.
I'm in my, in my room or whatever, and I'm at one side of the room and I'm open my eyes, I wouldn't necessarily be looking right at the window.
Yeah, no, she's kind of like curled up in a ball or on the side or something. Like she didn't leave the room, which she probably should have done, but she's just standing there, and he walks over to her. She's like, don't hurt me. And he pries her eyes open.
And she goes out the window too, I bet.
No, she does something terrible.
Uh-oh.
She stabs herself is what she does.
Oh, okay.
So Malorie is hiding under the blanket on the bed. I mean, she just gave birth, so she can't leave. That's understandable.
Yeah, no kidding. She's like, let's go for a run.
Yeah. So she has the two babies. She's under the blanket, she's trying to keep her eyes away from the window. And Gary is very nicely, he just sits on the bed. He's like, hey, why don't you come out and give me the babies? Like, he's just trying to be nice.
Oh, no.
So he's trying to talk her out of the blanket, and Malkovich shows up.
Yeah!
Yay! He's got his
MD
eyes...
to the rescue!
He is. He talks in the door. He's got his shotgun. His eyes are closed. And Gary, hilariously, is jumping from side to side in the room. He's like, you can't get me.
I mean, honestly, I would probably do that too.
And MD fires at him and does actually hit him, but not
It's a shotgun. Hard to miss at that range.
He doesn't he just wounds them. And then Gary rushes him, knocking both of them like through the door of the bedroom, down the balcony area of the second story into the first story of the house. And so they're on the ground, and MD is like laying there, they're both gasping, trying to get up, and Gary manages to get up and stabs him with some scissors. And
those were for the umbilical cords.
I know, which were already cut, thankfully, but poor Malkovich doesn't make it.
Aww.
Let's have a moment of silence for poor Malkovich Douglas.
I have actually a better question than silence.
Yes.
Wasn't the whole objective of Gary to get them to see the creatures? So why is he killing? No other point do the possessed people kill other people intentionally like that, but their whole modus operandi is to get them to see the creatures.
So he does actually say, this is an interesting example. He does actually say to Malkovich Douglas as he stabs him, he's like, I'm sorry. I really wanted you to be able to see the creatures, but I just, I can't. You're not going to make it.
Okay. Glad that was cleared up.
There's a call. Yeah. So Tom chooses this time, the perfect time, to wake up because he'd been knocked unconscious.
Well, timing is everything.
Yeah, he's downstairs on the floor with them, and he looks over and sees the shotgun as Gary's, finishing his murdering, and they both reach for this abandoned shotgun, and the camera pans away. You hear 2 shots. It's back upstairs, the camera is, but it's unclear who died, and the babies are like screaming upstairs,
Reasonably.
Yeah, so... And you watch that for a while and you kind of hear somebody like coming up the stairs, all the tension filled nonsense. And then it's Tom. Tom made it out alive.
Of course.
But plot twist, everybody else in the house is dead except for Tom and Malorie.
No, I got that. That's not really a plot twist as you just told us it happened.
It's crazy. Like literally this entire group of people that you've been following this entire movie, dead. Dead in like 5 minutes of screen time.
Kind of awesome. Gotta give the movie credit for that.
It's kind of amazing. I remember the first time I watched this, I was like, seriously? All gone. And now there's like a flash forward to Malorie training the kids who are now like around the same age, 5-ish,
Is Tom still around? Do they cover all the windows back up, I assume, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we'll get there actually here in a moment. So... They're about the same age that they did when they got into the boats, and she's clearly like training them on how to like hear noises with their blindfolds on. So she's like clicking rocks and stuff, and like, okay, when it's like this, something's closer. When it's like this, it's farther away. So she's trying to train them to survive. And they have like a whole compound thing going. They might be at a different house. I think they probably are. And it's like they have a whole system for getting around outside now. Like they have the guide wires and all of that. Like they've clearly spent the 5 years kind of prepping.
I'd love to see how they did that without exposing themselves, because that sounds insane.
I know. If you want a better version of this film, The Quiet Place, Sam. Just put it out there.
They did come out around the same time, right?
They did, yeah. And this is definitely like, I don't mind this movie. It's a decent enough movie, but The Quiet Place is infinitely better.
Okay. All right.
And you would like that because they show some of the like prepping stuff, like how they make things work, which is
And that's
cool.
with John Krasinski, right?
Yeah, and Emily Blunt.
Yeah, well, they're great.
Yeah, I would.
So that's Danielle's recommendation for the week.
I would highly suggest The Quiet Place. I have not seen Quiet Place 2, but it's on my bucket list here.
Your bucket list. Wow,
my movie
okay,
bucket
good.
List.
Better get to it before you die, Danielle. Jeez.
I mean, yeah, it's on the movies I want to watch before I pass on from this earth, hopefully in the next, 60 years.
60 years, you're optimistic.
It seems longevity runs in my family. All right. So, getting towards the end here. Like I said, in the future, Malorie's in one of a nearby abandoned house. She's collecting stuff. So they've been foraging. They've clearly figured out how to kind of be out in the world and their neighborhood and how to use their blindfolds accordingly. So Malorie is in this abandoned house collecting stuff, and outside 2 blackout window cars pull in.
Uh-oh.
And yeah. And then they kind of like peel around the driveway, and then she sneaks out and runs for her house. And she's just back in the house, and like nothing comes of that. But she tells Tom that she saw more of them driving around like they're not blindfolded.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. It just occurred to me while I was thinking about that, like, how weird is it that they have blackout windows when
right, if they don't
not
need
blindfolded to begin with?
They're not just tinted windows, they're actually blacked out, right?
They're like blacked out, like painted black. And I'm curious now if it's just because like they want to look like they're
they're trying
people.
to deceive people, but then they're driving around like they're not blindfolded.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, but it's clear that Tom and Malorie and the kids like have this whole family vibe thing going,
Aw.
Yeah, it's cute. And
Tom's gonna die.
In the middle of the night, maybe not. In the middle of the night, maybe that night, they hear a message come through on the walkie-talkie. It's like I think probably the first one that they've ever heard. And it's the message from the beginning of the movie. It's this guy named Rick, and he's talking about how there's this compound where everybody's safe, and it's at the river's end. And he walks them through the instructions on how to get there, and they pull out maps, and they're, kind of mapping it. But there is a lot of dissension after this conversation about whether or not they should go. And like Malorie didn't even want to like give him information on the thing. They're like, what if he's one of the guys, they're trying to trick us or find out where we are, or we can't even trust them.
I mean, that's a reasonable bit of paranoia.
It is. And he's like, well, they told us that like when we get to the river's end, there's going to be like birds. They're using birds, so they know the thing about the birds. He's like, yeah, well, so did Gary. He put them in the freezer. Like,
yeah, right. No, yeah.
So she like didn't consider that actual proof. So Malorie's very against going, and Tom is super for it. And she's basically like, we need to stay here to guarantee survival. We don't even know if this place is real, or if it's run by infected people, or it's a trick. And he's like, okay, but we have to do more than survive. Survival is not living. So you're on Tom's side, Sam.
Thank you. I am. Tom and I, we would have an apocalypse that I think we would both agree on, and probably would give up at the same time.
So he's like, survival's not living. Like, we need to go someplace where we can actually have a life and survive, and like not just survive. And you haven't even named the children. Like, you are not living.
She hasn't named the children 5 years?
No, this is boy and girl. This is the same ones that are in the boat.
I mean,
Sam.
I got that. I thought she maybe just called them that for some reason, but I don't think she just didn't give them names because she's a terrible human being.
She didn't give them names because she has attachment issues, and
Tom's there. He should do something like, this is not psychologically okay for these children.
I think they've had this conversation several times, and she's just not having it. And
technically
they're her children. I don't know.
She's terrible. This is another movie where everyone in it is terrible.
I like Tom.
Tom, okay, not Tom. Or MD. He's cool too.
So she basically is like, listen, every decision I make is for these children, but I can't promise them that hopes and dreams, like these things, they're never going to come true. Like, I can't, you like to tell them stories, and I don't think that's right, because these are children who are never going to meet other children. They're not going to have actual lives. It's survival is what their life is. And it's not fair to give them hope that it's going to be something different. So I can see both sides.
Yeah.
But she definitely has some issues with attachment. And
no, you said that before, but attachment issues are one thing, but not naming your child is not attachment issues. That's just cruel.
Well, she calls them boy and girl. They don't know any better. They've never met another child.
But they their parents have names, or at least,
maybe they think boy and girl are names. I don't know.
Terrible person.
Okay. I don't disagree, but there we are. So basically, they kind of get into this big fight about it, but they end up agreeing to disagree, and they make up the next day over a Pop-Tart that they find in a house.
Pop-Tarts solve everything.
You brought them up. So they share a Pop-Tart with the kids. They're like, this is what strawberry tastes like.
No, it isn't.
No, I know. I was laughing during that scene. I was like, that doesn't taste like strawberry at all.
I love me a strawberry Pop-Tart, but it is not strawberry.
But as they're eating their Pop-Tart, they are interrupted by more evil car people, Sam.
Oh, shocking.
I know. So Tom, bless his heart, he goes out to distract them and give Malorie and the kids time to get out the back of this house. And he's like, give me 15 minutes. If I am not back at our house, like, leave. Do not come back. Try to find me. Like, go, 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 go. And she's like, no, I can't leave you. And he's like, go. There's this tearful goodbye.
Aww.
And I know Tom runs outside, and we have a shotgun with him, and he definitely takes down at least two of the people in this group who are very much like, hey man, you want to come with us? Come, like, check out the cool stuff. It's so beautiful and amazing.
Sounds like a PSA for like hey man, you want to try drugs?
Oh, it's very, they definitely have like a druggy vibe out in the
you want to kick into this? You can be cool like us, Tom. Don't you want to be cool?
So he takes down two of these people, but they shoot back at him, and he gets wounded, and he's like, screw this, and he takes his mask off to see better, and he shoots more of them. He basically gets almost all of them except this one guy, and it's clear the creatures are coming, like the trees are kind of waving in the background, and you hear the spooky music. And he, of course, as soon as he hears like the noise behind him, he turns to look, and it's the creatures.
Yeah, of course.
His eyes go wide, and he manages, like sheer force of will, manages to take out the last guy with the shotgun before he kills himself.
Aw, poor Tom.
So she hears the two last shotguns, as she's running with the kids, and she's back at the house, and she is sitting there staring at the clock, and you can see it like tick past what I assume is the 15-minute mark, and she's like sobbing, and she finally pulls herself together. And the next scene is the beginning of the movie, where she's talking to the kids, telling them their plans to go down the river.
Right, because, really, she's just waiting for death at this point.
Yeah, so she's kind of had her come to Jesus moment.
All right, we're caught to the present, moment. Danielle. Let's finish this sucker out. It's been a long and somewhat, what we're looking for, shenanigan-filled journey.
And it is. The ending is just as shenanigan-filled. Oh. So, 42 hours on the river, Sam, and the rapids are upcoming.
42 hours. That's way more. Okay, never mind. Go on.
What? It's 2 days, they said.
Yeah.
So, she's trying to figure out which child she's going to pick, and both kids volunteer. The boy admittedly is like, I'll do it. And the girl's like, I guess I can do it. Like, she's like very not into it.
Man, okay.
And she's like, no, I'm going to decide. And there's this flashback to the Hello Kitty doll scene where she's being given to Olympia. And you can tell what she's deciding, obviously, is like, does she pick her own child or does she pick Olympia's child who she promised to take care of?
Right,
like,
I got that. I get the moral implications here.
Right. So I feel like she just wants to take on that responsibility, whether or not she should. That's the choice she's making. And she finally, like, is this long moment where she's kind of staring at them. She can't decide. And she finally is like, you know what? Forget it. Like, we're all going to keep our blindfolds on. Let's just do this.
Yeah, no kidding. That was something I pointed out at the very beginning.
Right. So she doesn't even take her blindfold off. And so they do the rapids blindfolded, which is actually a very harrowing ride. It's pretty well done in the movie. Like, it's pretty creepy as they're trying to go down the rapids, and like the CG plus, I'm sure, somebody actually going down rapids combination like works really well in this movie.
Oh, that sounds like it does sound like a cool scene, like in terms of film techniques and whatnot.
Yeah, it's actually pretty well filmed. This whole movie is pretty well filmed. But when they hit a patch of this really bad rapids, the boat does flip.
Uh-oh.
And everybody's out of the boat, and she comes up and she's screaming, and she's like, girl, boy, where are you?
Should give them names.
And she finally hears boy calling, and she manages to get him in the water, and she's like trying to drag him ashore. They're still blindfolded. And she hears a bell ringing, which was on the boat. It's just one of those little like genie bells that you can like hit the side of, and it goes ding, 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 ding.
Sure.
And girl is off on the shore, and she has the bell in her hand, and she's like, keep ringing the bell, I'm coming. And she's like trying to swim towards her. So they finally managed to make it to shore, and somehow the girl managed to have the bird box with her.
The titular bird box.
Amazing. She falls out of the boat and grabs the bird box.
Blindfolded. Amazing. Quick question. This may have been really late, but was the only reason that the voice on the radio said don't bring children is because they might not survive the trip?
Yeah, because it's such a hard trip.
But so like, what are you going to do? Just leave the children behind? Because they're definitely not going to survive that way.
Well, they don't say don't bring children. He just says, do you have any children with you? And and they actually say no, because they're not 100% sure if this guy is like on the up and up. And he's like, why? Tom asks why. And the guy's like, well, it's just it's a hard journey. We don't think kids would survive.
Okay, sure.
Anyway, that's why, supposedly.
Uh-huh. Sounds much more sinister.
Oh, yes, I know. But that's not why. Anyway, so they have the bird box, and they are off to the side. They've gotten past the rapids. So this is basically like where they were supposed to end up anyways. They just are without their boat.
Oh.
And so they've made it to the shore, which is fine because they've made it to the shore. And she's like, you hear those birds? Like, because you can hear birds off in the background. She's like, we're supposed to follow the birds, and we're going to make it to the compound. Like, let's go. And so they're trying to walk blindfold towards it. But the plants kind of in the forest start very creepily, moving behind them. And the whispers start up. And
Sandy! Sign my limited edition Pretty Woman DVD!
Except this time it's Tom.
What?
Tom's voice. It's Tom's voice.
Oh.
He's like, Malorie, open your eyes, take off your blindfold. It's me, I swear. Like,
yeah.
And she's trying desperately to ignore them, which I'm sure is very hard when it's somebody that you loved.
Sure.
And
I thought she had attachment issues. She wouldn't have gotten attached to Tom. She doesn't name her children.
Okay, well, she has attachment issues, but like, she still had a relationship with Tom. Like, they clearly had this kind of little family unit
I'm just
going.
calling shenanigans on her ability to bond with Tom, but not her children.
I think she's very bonded with her children. I think she just was like afraid to fully commit to being a mother because it was so temporary.
This is kind of like when you hear like where a kid, they get the turkey or whatever for Thanksgiving, like don't give it a name because you're gonna have to eat it later.
Yes, it's a little bit like that.
But like,
I'm not saying it makes sense, but psychologically, I'm willing to run with it. Sure.
All right, I'll stop. But.
So she's trying to ignore these whispers. They're kind of kind of running through the forest as she's trying to kind of outrun them and follow the birds and ignore the whispers. And she ends up tripping over a log, and she slides down this hill and knocks herself out. Now, the kids obviously don't see this because they're all blindfolded, so they can't quite figure out where she went, and they're calling her name and she's not answering. And so they sort of like split up to wander.
Oh no, just stay put.
So she finally wakes up and she's calling out for them, kind of out of it. And she's hearing Jessica and Tom's voices like, open your eyes, take off your blindfold.
Oh.
And she finally hears Boy talking to someone. He's like, is it okay? It's okay to take my blindfold off? And he's talking to Malorie's voice, like fake Malorie, Whisper
Of course.
Malorie, who apparently, I thought it was only like dead people or something that they couldn't do the voices.
The rules are going out the window here. First, you have the guy who could totally deceive everyone for hours on end, and then you have like, oh, we can just imitate any voice we want to. It's fine.
I was like very confused. I was like, wait, I thought Malorie's not dead.
Right? Yeah, no, that doesn't make anyone who's like not part of the collective or whatever.
Yeah, it seemed very questionable. So it's Malorie being like, take off your blindfold. It's okay. It's safe. And so the kid, 5, is like, are you sure I can take it off? I'm not supposed to. And he's like, no, it's fine. Take it off. and she starts screaming. The real Mallory is like, do not take it off. This is the real voice.
That's my mom. She's a screamer.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why the kids would ever be confused because there's Sandra Bullock screaming like, listen to this voice.
Yeah, no, I'd be like, all right, that's the right one. Absolutely.
Especially if they were raised around these whispers,
Yeah, no, duh.
So she's just yelling, like, do not take it off. Please don't take it off. And she is telling them to ignore it. And she hears Girl also do the same thing. And the birds are just going crazy in the bird box. So she's trying to find these 2 kids. And she finally hears the bell and she's able to find Boy because all the whispers and the voices, it's just hard to kind of localize where people are. Yeah. And she gets Boy back and Boy's like, Girl isn't coming because she's kind of scared of you, like, which is fair because all she does is yell at this kid.
No, I'd be like, yeah, no thanks.
So Girl is like very slowly sliding up her blindfold to the top of her head as, the voice telling her that it's okay. And suddenly Malorie starts apologizing, like she's just yelling apologies out into the forest. Like, I'm so sorry. I should have told you the stories. This one story that Tom was trying to tell her earlier that she interrupted. She's like, this is how that story ended. We're going to live in a beautiful new place. Like she's trying to like build it up,
You're a little late for that to try to form a connection. Like, this is my point was like, you don't just scream at children. If this was a Life is Beautiful situation, the kids would be on board.
Right. But she should have done that from the beginning, but she has her turnaround moment, Sam. She has her
very abruptly
thing where she realizes, or she suddenly realizes that she doesn't want to lose Girl and, that she's done everything for her, but has not had any kind of emotional connection, or at least not admitted any emotional connection. She definitely hasn't.
Right.
So she's like tearfully apologizing. And as she's, 2/3 of her way through her rant, Girl walks up to her with her blindfold back on and she does a big group hug. And
the end. Fade to black.
Almost. So she hears the birds again in the forest, and she's like, okay, we've got to follow the birds. Like the voices die down for a minute. She's like, let's go. So they start running, and then she hears Tom's voice again, and so the whispers start up, and it's just like a cacophony of noises. They're having a hard time. And the kids are like, I can't hear. And they're trying to follow the birds, but they can't because there's too many whispers. But they finally make it to this house or this building that's in the forest, and they start banging on the door. And she's like, I followed the river. Rick told us on the radio. And they're like, he told us to follow the birds. Please let us in. At least take the children. Even if you don't take me, like, please, please, please let us in. And eventually the door finally opens and they spill through. And they're in this blackened room. And they shine like flashlights into their eyes, checking them out to see if they're the weird eyes, which I guess now there's a way to check.
But like with Greg, what the hell his name was?
Gary, they never did.
Yeah, but Gary, his eyes didn't change until after when he was
they were
talking about...
always slightly weird, but I don't think they realized that those weren't his normal eyes. Like,
right, okay.
When you look, you're kind of like, those eyes look kind of weird. You get the idea that he's probably not a normal dude, but like, I don't think... What do you have to
compare it to? Yes, I got you.
Right, so, but apparently there's a way to check, which they should have known earlier, I guess. So they're like, okay, you can take your blindfolds off, and you can tell she's very And so the kids keep them on, but she very slowly takes her blindfolds off. And as soon as she does, she sees the sign on the wall that says Janet Tucker's School for the Blind.
Oh, ha.
Oh, take that, visual-based creatures. Oh, snap.
And so how do they check their eyes if they're all blind?
There's people there that also can see, because it's this basically like a commune kind of area.
Got it.
So this inside courtyard is filled with people. There's tons of birds. They have it all like sealed in with like vines and stuff, and there's just birds everywhere. And many people are blind, because obviously this was a school for the blind, but there's lots of people that aren't as well. And so she's just kind of like you can tell she's just overwhelmed by this, and she looks down at the kids, and she's got the bird box in her hands, and she's like, do you think it's okay if we let the birds go and they can join their friends up in the sky there?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, yeah. And so they open the box and the 3 birds fly out. It's a metaphor, Sam.
I got it. But my thing is also, why is it movie called Bird Box if the birds played virtually no role in this movie? The birds in the box.
Great question, Sam. I do not have any answer for that. And there is one little extra scene that has nothing to do with birds, but I'm not quite done. Okay.
I'm just saying the birds in the titular box seemed largely irrelevant to this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I don't 100% understand why this movie is called Bird Box, other than I guess the birds alert them, but only sometimes.
And also, it's a pretty good name. I'll give it that.
It's a great name. I'm like, I wanted to watch Bird Box, sure.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, sorry. We're almost done. Sorry about that.
It is literally the end scene, which makes no sense, and I love it. So the birds fly off. It's a metaphor. And then randomly, the OB from earlier that was supposed to deliver her babies is there.
What? Okay.
And she walks up and she's like, oh my gosh, Malorie. And she's surprised to see them. And she's like, what are your kids' names?
Good question. I call them boy and girl because I'm a terrible human being.
Yeah, and the kids are like, I'm boy, I'm girl. And Malorie like kind of stops them and she's like, actually, she looks at the girl. She's like, I'm going to name you Olympia.
Wait, guess. Name it after her sister and Tom, right?
No, Olympia.
Oh, okay. And sister and, okay, I thought it was close. Olympia and Tom. Dang.
Yeah, Olympia, and yep, the little boy's name is Tom. Tom Jr., I assume. And she's like, and I am their mother, because she has her moment. And the kids are like, we have names. They're very delighted by this.
So they understood the concept of names and not having one. That's heartbreaking. Yeah,
I'm not sure they say I have names, but you can tell they're quite pleased to have actual names. And then they run off to play. She's like, go play with the friends. And the OB just, I don't know, disappears. Like she's no longer there. And that's the extent of that conversation. And the credits roll.
Remember when I said earlier I'd be incensed if there was no explanation about what these creatures are or why this is happening? Yep. I am incensed. I am furious.
That's great.
So, like, I'm not saying you have to explain every mystical thing because it keeps it interesting to have some mystery. Like, not seeing the creatures, that's cool. I like that. But to have this entire, like, premise, but with no background that gives it any weight, undermines any impact it has, I think. It's just magic at this point. It's not scary. It's not interesting as much because it's like, oh, it was just magic that's happening. There are no rules and I have no idea, like, what the stakes are. That's
what makes this movie so great is, like, yeah, all the plot lines make sense in terms of like one thing happening and the next thing happening, but when you look at it, you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like when you have like these zombies, that's why people will spend hours arguing about like the rules for how zombies or vampires work, because having those rules, establishing the rules, is what gives them menace. You understand like what the dangers are and how you can screw up. If there are no rules, I mean that's scary in its own way, but like it's just kind of like, well, what's the point then? If there's no rules, there's nothing for me to really worry about because there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, and what drives me crazy is that, like, there's all this stuff that they posit, which is interesting stuff, like this rapture idea.
Sure.
It's like some people seem to survive this, and some people go and
become acolytes.
Like, and like what is that about? Like, you kind of want to know more about that. Like, why is that something that happens to these specific people? Is it like is it something about those people, or is it just random? And then yet some of them like immediately hurt themselves, kill themselves. Like what? Why?
Why? That's the point. It's like, if there was some reason that some people survived, that might make them more menacing in some way. Or anyway, that's disappointing is all I'm going to say. Also, that ending where it's like, oh, we're at the compound, everything's fine. Like, that's not fine. Like, you are still in an incredibly dangerous world because we don't know anything about these creatures. Are they going to go away eventually? Are they permanently there? Is your life going to be spent locked inside this? Like, that's my point. We have no idea if reaching this compound is any measure of safety because they were living pretty fine in their own compound when the guys in the black vans drove up and like tried to kill them all.
Sure. And I think the idea is more like this is just a better version of that. They don't like downplay that, I think, with the end of this movie, because it is the people that like introduce her around are like aware of the fact that the monsters are literally just outside the doors. That it's just, it's because they apparently can't come in the buildings. They've managed to create a safe community of people. And it's not just her and Tom and the two kids. Now it's like more kids and like they have a sense of belonging.
Community. I gotcha. What really sounds more interesting to me, and if I was going to take this premise, the concept of living in a world with monsters right outside the door, like, I would like to see that. Like, start the movie just before they get to the compound or whatever, and then show them in this world, living in this world where there's this immediate and kind of mystical danger just outside your door every second of the day. Like, that would be an incredible movie.
Well, Bird Box 2, Sam. Bird Boxier.
Even more birds in a box.
4 birds in a box.
Whoa. Let's not go crazy.
The most birds you've ever seen in a box.
Oh, man. Actually, I was thinking maybe Bird Box 2 is like birds boxing. And you put little bird boxing gloves on their little feet and they have to like box. It'd be
that
so
would be cute too. Maybe that's what they do for fun at the compound. But only birds that want to. We want that to be.
Of course. This is all absolutely volunteer birds only.
Okay.
All right. Well, clearly I didn't get this movie. And I didn't see it, but I don't think you really got it either, Danielle, in terms of like...
Oh, absolutely not. I still don't understand it. This is probably... I think this is the 3rd time I've seen this movie, maybe.
Well, if anyone out there can explain to us like anything about these creatures or what's going on in this world, I would love to be enlightened because I think the concept is super cool. I just don't have a firm grasp of how it works.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to tell us their favorite Sandra Bullock movies, because I am assuming neither of them are The Net or Bird Box, but I could be wrong.
You could be wrong. I mean, I think The Net is my favorite Sandra Bullock movie at this point, and I haven't even seen that one yet.
Well, I don't not recommend Bird Box.
Well, with that strong endorsement, if you have anything else, you can reach us at bookretorts.com.
You can also tweet us, Instagram, or Facebook us at Spook Retorts.
And if you like what we do and want to hear more bonus content, you can do so at patreon.com/bookretorts.
It's great. We also released a couple of our little bonus episodes if you want to get a taste of what's on our Patreon.
Yes, and a amuse-bouche, if you will.
Yes, and you get some extra little bonus cool stuff like stickers and things.
Absolutely. Well, so far, Spook Retorts, living up to its name, and I hope you'll join us next week for more spooky weirdness.
Excellent work, Sam.
I really got to take advantage of what I can.
I appreciate your enthusiasm on Spook
I love it.
Retorts.
It's the best. All right, until then, bye.
Take care, everybody. Ready?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You should add a sound effect of a breaking wall.
Oh, yeah. Oh, don't drink my blood, children. Now, there's a horror movie.
That would be so scary.
Like, imagine you just bust into a home. Don't ask why, you just are, and then a bunch of children surround you and start, like, drinking your blood gleefully.
I like the idea that he's in the Kool-Aid Man costume.
There's no one in there. Like, the Kool-Aid Man, like, is his own entity, and the Kool-Aid is his blood.
Blood. Like, just, that seems like a Robot Chicken episode.
You know what? It very well might have been.
It's quite possible.